Picture of Vikings Day. You already have the image. Axe in hand, longship on the horizon, screaming down on some unsuspecting coastline before breakfast. Here's the actual answer. For the overwhelming majority of Vikings, on the overwhelming majority of days, nothing like that happened. Not once in the entire day. Not once in most months, honestly. The real day started with work, not food. It ran on a division of labor so strict you could draw it as a physical line across the floor of the house. And it ended, more often than not, with somebody teaching a kid how to weave by firelight. That's the day. That's what they actually did. So this video walks through it properly. Hour by hour, chore by chore, morning to night. The version that almost never gets covered because a man mending a fence doesn't animate as well as a longship on fire. And along the way, there's one detail about who actually controlled the household that is going to change how you think about who was really in charge. Let's start at the very beginning of the day, because even the beginning doesn't work the way you'd expect. You'd assume the day starts with breakfast. It doesn't. It starts with chores on an empty stomach. The first meal of the day was called dagmal, the day meal. And it wasn't served when people woke up. It came an hour, sometimes 2 hours, after the household was already up and moving. Before anyone ate anything, the animals had been fed, the fire had been brought back to life, and water had been hauled in from outside. Think about that rhythm for a second, because it's the opposite of ours. The modern day starts with food. Coffee first, then functioning. The Viking day started with functioning. You woke up, you worked, and somewhere down the line, food showed up. You didn't eat to start the day, you earned your way to the first meal. And when that meal finally arrived, it usually wasn't cooked fresh that morning. It was last night's dinner, reheated. The evening stew pot didn't get emptied out and scrubbed every night. It stayed over the fire. It simmered. New things got thrown in when they were available. And the next morning, whatever was in there became breakfast. Some households ran the same pot continuously for days, which means a Viking morning didn't involve anyone deciding what to eat. That decision had been made 12 hours ago by whoever added turnips to the pot the night before. You woke up, did your chores, and ate yesterday. Every day. Now, here's where the day splits in two. And this split is the single most important thing to understand about how a Viking household actually functioned. The division of labor wasn't a loose cultural habit, where men mostly did some things and women mostly did others. It was spatial. It had a location. The threshold of the house, the actual doorway, was the dividing line. Everything outside that threshold belonged to the man. The fields, the livestock, the fences, the firewood, the fishing, the building work. If it happened under the open sky, it was his. Everything inside the threshold belonged to the woman. The food, the textiles, the stores, the management of the entire household operation. If it happened under the roof, it was hers. And this wasn't a suggestion, it was closer to an operating system. Two people woke up every morning already knowing exactly which half of the world they were responsible for because the house itself was the map. But inside that division, there's one detail that almost always gets skipped. And this is the one I promised you. The housewife held the key. Not a metaphorical key. A physical iron key worn on her person that controlled access to the storehouse. And the storehouse was everything. The food that had to last through winter, the valuables, the family's entire margin for survival locked in one place, and she decided what came out of it and when. Every meal that got served went through her. Every ration that got handed out went through her. If the household traded something away, it went through her. The man could be the most feared warrior in the district, and he still wasn't the one deciding how much salted fish left the storeroom this week. And we know this mattered because of what's in the graves. Archaeologists keep finding these keys buried with women, specifically with higher status women, laid in the grave alongside their other valuables. You don't get buried with a chore, you get buried with an office. The key was a badge of authority, and the authority was real. So while the man was outside doing the thing everyone pictures when they hear the word Viking, the actual command over the household's resources sat with someone who might not leave the building all day. All right, let's follow his half of the day for a bit, because even the outdoor half isn't what you'd expect. If it's planting season, he's plowing. Sounds simple enough, except the plow he's using, a tool called an ARD, is not the plow you're imagining. It's not the curved blade that slices into the ground and folds the soil over. It's basically a vertical wooden spike, dragged through the dirt. It scratches the ground open. It doesn't turn it. And that one design limitation shaped the entire workday, because a single pass with an ARD often wasn't enough to make a field plantable. So farmers cross-plowed. They dragged the spike through the whole field once, and then turned around and did the entire field again at an angle across the first pass just to break the soil up properly. So when you ask what a Viking man did all day in spring, one honest answer is he plowed the same field twice. Not because he was thorough, because his equipment made once not count. Meanwhile, back inside the house, the woman's half of the day has something running underneath it that never actually stops. And this is the detail that stopped me cold when I first read about it. Spinning thread. Every piece of clothing, every blanket, every sack, every sail on every ship started as thread. And thread had to be spun by hand, fiber by fiber, with a drop spindle. The amount of thread a household needed was so enormous that spinning couldn't be a scheduled task. There was no spinning hour. Instead, it became the permanent background activity of a woman's entire existence. She spun while she watched the livestock. She spun while she talked to a neighbor. She spun while keeping an eye on the children, while walking between buildings, while sitting by the fire at the end of the day. The spindle just came along, everywhere, always. If you tried to pin down exactly when a Viking woman spun thread, the honest answer is constantly, in every gap between everything else. It wasn't a task on the list. It was the thing that filled the space between tasks. And the archaeology backs this up in a way that's almost haunting. Spindle whorls, the little weights used for spinning, show up in nearly every single female grave from the period. Queens down to slaves. Everyone spun. All the time. For a lifetime. Now, there is one stretch of the year where this entire structure, the threshold, the split, the separate worlds, temporarily collapses. And it's worth knowing about because it proves how rigid everything else was. Harvest. For those few weeks in autumn, the line down the middle of the household simply stopped existing. Everyone went to the fields. Men, women, children, the elderly, hired hands, everyone. The work was too much, and the window was too short to care about whose job was whose. Grain doesn't wait, and winter was coming either way. It's one of the only points in the entire year where the shape of the day changed completely. Which tells you something. If it took the single most urgent deadline in the agricultural calendar to suspend the rules the rest of the year were basically law. So, evening. The work is done, time to rest. Except not really. And this is where the day gets slightly bleak, honestly. The night meal, natmal, was served after the working day ended. Proper food, the biggest meal, stew and bread and whatever the season allowed. But the end of the working day didn't mean the end of working. In winter, when the cold got serious, the animals often came inside, into the longhouse. At night, cattle and people, under the same roof, separated by not very much, partly to protect the animals from the cold. Partly unofficially because a cow is a large, warm object and the family sleeping a few feet away appreciated the heat. So the boundary between the workday and rest wasn't really a boundary at all. The livestock you'd been tending since before breakfast were now standing in your bedroom. And those long winter evenings had a job of their own. That was when the household's skills got passed down. Weaving, carving, smithing, whatever the family knew, taught to the kids by firelight, sons and daughters alike, because outdoor work had stopped for the season and the evenings were long and dark. There was no school. The longhouse was the school, and winter was the semester. To be fair, it wasn't all labor. There was room in the evenings for games, for stories, for sitting around the fire being a family. But the point stands. The end of a Viking day didn't mean stopping. It mostly meant switching to quieter work, closer to the fire. So let's put the whole day back together. You wake up before food exists. You split immediately along a line that was drawn before you were born, him outside, her inside. He plows the same field twice because his plow only scratches. She spins thread through every spare second of her existence because the household runs on fabric. The stores that keep everyone alive are locked behind a key that she carries, and everything that leaves that room is her call. At harvest, all of it gets suspended, and everyone works. In winter, the animals sleep in the house, and the evenings are for teaching kids the family trade. And raiding, the thing that defines these people in every show, every movie, every game, for the vast majority of Vikings, it wasn't part of the day at all. Raiding was seasonal. It was expensive to take part in. It involved a small fraction of the population, a few weeks a year, if their circumstances allowed it at all. Most of the people we call Vikings lived and died without the day we picture ever happening to them once. The honest answer to what Vikings did all day is this. They ran one of the most disciplined household operations in medieval Europe, and occasionally, some of them went raiding on the side. If you want the version of history that actually gets left out, the parts that never make it into the documentaries because a spindle doesn't have the same energy as a burning ship, hit subscribe, because that is exactly what this channel is for. And there's more coming. Next week, this channel is digging into another question everyone thinks they know the answer to, and doesn't. Subscribe now and you'll catch it the moment it's up.